Ta-da! That was Sneaky Snitch. That's the name of that particular song. I don't know how they came up with that name, but it seems to work. Seems pretty good. So welcome everybody to CENG 176. Obviously going to be slightly different this year than it has been in previous iterations of the course. But what I want to go over today is the general layout of the course, obviously, but also to try to emphasize to you that it's not really that much different from what we had intended to do with the course anyway. The course in the spring is usually changed compared to what it is in the winter. And so I'm going to try to point out which one is similar and which one is different. Obviously, the platform is different, right? We're in Zoom right now. And so a couple of things that you can do in Zoom if you haven't been in Zoom before is check your chat window and check the participants window. So you can open chat with Alt-H, at least on a PC, you can do Alt-H. And you can open your participants window with an Alt-U. And in particular on the participants window, you should see some green checkboxes. A green checkbox for yes, a red checkbox for no. So if you look next to my name, you can see I'm flipping right now between the two of them. So put a green check in chat if you can see me and hear me. All right, looks like pretty much everybody's got a green check. So if you cannot see me and you cannot hear me, most likely the problem is on your end somewhere. So double check your audio settings or make sure your headphones are plugged in or whatever. It looks like everybody can see me pretty well. Right now, the chat window, if you try to chat with somebody through there, your chat will go directly to me, which somebody in my other class found out the hard way. That is only temporary for this particular lecture. There's been apparently a phenomenon called Zoom bombing, where people just enter random meeting numbers and try to get into meetings, and then they post inappropriate things. And I've been on Twitch long enough to know that people get really creative with their ASCII character art. So I'm not taking any chances today. On future lectures, and there's not going to be a lot of them, but on future lectures, we'll open things up so that we can actually communicate back and forth more like it would be in a normal classroom. I guess I can take this waiting room off too, because we are no longer waiting for the stream is not starting soon. It has started. So I'll switch us over to our normal screen over here. So let's see, everybody is here. Let's switch this over to student view so that it'll be a little bit more like what you can expect to see. Obviously, we're going to use Canvas a fair amount for the course. The syllabus is more or less set up on here, and we're going to start with the daily schedule. We'll go through everything on the syllabus. It's not particularly long, right? It's what, like page, something like that. So I don't anticipate this meeting to take probably more than about 30 minutes, but then I'll definitely hang around afterwards to answer any questions that you have. And please feel free to shoot me a message in chat as I'm talking, and I'll get to them as quickly as I can. So let's look at the daily schedule. You can open this on yours or just watch on mine. And actually, last time I found that it was kind of annoying to use this view for presentation purposes, but you can just click on the little icon there and see the daily schedule, or you can click on the actual link and get a copy of the daily schedule. I'm going to display that copy of the daily schedule because it's a little bit easier to view this. It's much simplified compared to what it was in the winter quarter. And the reason for that is two things. One is different, and the part that's different from what it was in the winter quarter and what's different from what it would normally be is that all of these assignments are individual. That's not as big a change as you might expect. The way that we're planning on running the spring quarter anyway before a global pandemic broke out, is that everything starting around week 4 to week 5, that was going to be individual anyway. Usually the way that we envision this is the first 3 or 4 reports, you're sort of working as a team to learn each of the individual portions on your own with a little bit less stress compared to having to create the entire report from beginning to end. And now when we get into the second half of the course, it really becomes your report. And so that's a little different from what we were going to do in the sense that normally you would have been completing the 4th experiment, which is the first one this quarter, as a team, but now you'll be completing it individually. That element is a change, and so the first 3 or 4 weeks is a little bit different from what it would normally be. But everything after that, that's how it was going to be anyway. So it's not like we're hugely modifying the course right now just to accommodate for the remote structure. It was already in a position where it was going to be able to be modified pretty well. So that's really convenient. It means that you're still going to get basically the full experience of the course. It's not going to be dumbed down very much. And I say very much because if you look under the style portion here on the daily schedule, what's being listed here are what the lectures are going to look like. Obviously, there's no lab. Right, that's the element that is dumbed down a little bit, but not as much as you might think, and we'll get to more of that in a minute. The other part is the lecture portion. There's actually more lectures on here than we would normally give. In the normal course of this, or in the normal pace of this course, there would be exactly 1 lecture, which is today's lecture. I would have met with you in a lecture hall, and that would have been the last time we met in a lecture hall. But I still would have had the opportunity to talk to you in lab. We don't have that opportunity now, obviously, because we can't go into lab. And so we've got a couple of extra lectures later on in the course, which will be done. At the moment, we plan to do them live, either myself or Dr. Opakowitz. It depends on what topic is being covered. But a few of them will also be pre-recorded. Those are the ones that are, if you're looking for what's different for this quarter compared to what we would normally do, those are the ones where it's kind of different because I'm going to be recording myself doing the experiment and then you are going to do the data analysis on it. That's obviously not ideal. On the plus side, though, we only have to do that for 1 experiment. The second experiment, the one that takes up the majority of the course in weeks, basically like 4.5 through 10, we're going to go over a piece of software that we use as part of the course anyway called COMSOL to perform numerical experiments, right? Computational experiments. And that's the way the course has always been. That experiment has always been there. If you were paying really close attention to the course website last quarter, you'd have noticed that I took off one of the experiments, the LPCVD one. I eliminated that so that nobody could pick it. It used to be part of the X experiment, right? You could have chosen to do LPCVD. Fortunately, no one did, which is good. Liposomes were really popular last quarter, more so than they have been in the past. So we took that experiment and reserved it for this particular, this quarter. And that's the experiment that you're going to work on for the second. It's more than half the quarter. It's more like 2/3 of this quarter. And that's going to be through a platform called COMSOL. And we'll go over that a little bit more today, just for 5 minutes to show you how to get it. But that's going to be the second part of the course. And those experiments you actually get to do because we've been able to get special licenses for that software so that you can actually use it at home. And that is exactly the way that experiment has always been done. And so there's, starting from about week 4 on, there's really very little change in the lab compared to what you would normally experience, except that I'm making you do the LPCVD instead of giving you that option to pick potentially one of the remaining experiments. So in that sense, it's different, but in a lot of senses, it's very similar to the way that it would be anyway. All of the lectures, whether or not they are listed as live, well, obviously pre-recorded, all of the live ones will be recorded. So this lecture right now is currently being recorded. So you never have to show up to the lecture in order to get that information. You can always watch the recording afterwards. The entire course is designed to be completed asynchronously. So if you're in a different time zone or something like that, don't worry about waking up at the middle of the night just to see a lecture because it will get posted. And it's not like something that gets posted is, the on a homework that's due within 24 hours and you've really got to watch it right now. Like it's okay. You can complete the whole course asynchronously without ever showing up to one of the live lectures. We have added a few homeworks. So there were originally going to be probably 2 homeworks, and we bumped that up to 4. The dates that are listed here, so you can see the post date here. By the way, apologies if whenever I'm saying anything that begins with a P or a B or maybe even a V, I have ordered a pop filter. If you don't know what a pop filter is, it's a little screen of mesh that sits between me and the microphone, and it filters out those they call them plosive P's and B's. All the cool kids on Twitch use pop filters, so I ordered a pop filter too. It's just not here yet, so give me a little while. It'll be there eventually. Anyway, if you look at the post date for the homeworks, the post dates are the dates where if you go onto Canvas, you'll be able to access that homework. And I'm going to show you in a minute what that looks like on Canvas. And then the due dates are listed on a separate date. So the due date for the first homework, if you follow that over, is next Tuesday. And the due times for every assignment, every report, every homework, all of it, it's always 11 p.m. on the date that's listed there. And remember, that's individual, so you don't have to try to coordinate with anybody in a manner that's even more difficult now than it was when you could meet with each other. You don't have to coordinate with anybody. Everything's being done individually. So 11 p.m., every due date, every assignment. It's very easy to remember, and all of the due dates are listed here. There's 4 homeworks, and there's also going to be 2 reports. So report 4, and we say report 4 because it builds off of winter quarter. You already did 1, 2, and 3, and now you're doing report 4. That one's going to be written only, so there will be no oral presentation component to report 4. Report 5, there will be both a written portion and an oral report portion. Again, that's a tool that we've used in the past. It's not, we're going to leverage it a little bit more, obviously, now than we have before, but that's not a new thing. We've done this in the past, so don't feel like this is, you're getting like the short end of the stick or something like that. We've done this before. Those can be completed in a variety of different ways. I'll probably post some notes when it gets out there around week 7 or so, when we actually start. We sort of propose the experiment that you're supposed to be doing there in week 7. But I mean, it's pretty simple stuff. It can be hold up your phone, or put it on a table or a book or something, and record yourself giving a presentation that way. It looks like almost all of you have both a webcam and a microphone, and so you could always record it through Zoom if you wanted to, or through almost anything that will record audio and video, and you could post it that way if you wanted to. But there'll be more information on what that oral presentation looks like when we get closer to it, out there around like week 6, 7, something like that. So come back to the daily schedule to find out what's due when. The only thing that will ever change on the daily schedule is to push stuff out. So we will never take like homework 2. We will never take that and bump it up by a week, right? It will always be due no earlier than Thursday, April 6th or April 16th. We may push it back to the following Tuesday or a Monday or something like that, but we will never go any faster than what's written here. So you don't have to worry about like if you're in a different time zone and you wake up and suddenly I bumped it up 12 hours, which is now 2 hours in your past. We'll try to follow this as closely as we can, but any modifications that we have to make for it will only be to push due dates out. So they will never come any faster than what we've got here. A short survey questionnaire is going to go out in, I don't know, sometime later today. Either Dr. Opakowitz or I will send it out. These subsequent lectures that we have marked as live in weeks 4 through 7, we're only going to do one of those. We're not going to double them up. So we're not going to do one at 12:30 and one at 2 p.m. But we got to find out what kind of setup for that is going to be best for the most number of people. So you're going to get a survey about what works best for you in terms of timing for those lectures, because we're not going to keep doing 2 of them back to back every single time. Those are the big ones. Let's go back to that homework idea. I said homework is going to be posted on Canvas. If I switch back over to the Canvas page on here and you go into modules, you'll be able to find out where all the homework is posted. Generally, the modules are set up according to the experiment. So there's going to be 2. The first one you're going to work on is pack bed pressure drop. That's one of those ones where a pop filter would be nice when you say pack bed pressure drop. And you'll just see that homework 1 is posted here. Any of the associated homeworks with the packed bed experiment will show up inside its module. And there'll be just a link here that you can click on, and that'll take you to the page. I actually forgot I need to add the link right here to get the actual homework assignment, but it'll be a PDF assignment, and you'll just be able to look at it in whatever you want for PDFs. We'll come back to that again because the submission process is through Gradescope. Actually, why don't we look at it here since we're on Gradescope right now? I've been doing this for like 5 or 6 years or something like that, and you kind of keep like 2 mental pictures of yourself. It's like, there's obviously me in my personal life, and then there's me in my work life. And the me in my work life, it kind of changes, right? You have your own mental picture of yourself. I just realized that I associate myself as being a teacher because when I found Gradescope, I was so excited to have something that is so good at grading stuff that it's like, I know that I am now considering myself a teacher, because not very many people get really excited about something that makes grading really, really easy. But I was super stoked to get Gradescope. And so that's what all of your assignments are going to be submitted through. If you've used Gradescope in other courses, then it's going to work the same in here. If you haven't, I've posted a video here on how to submit homework. I can't actually show you the submission process because there's no equivalent of like a student preview for that. So I can't walk you through that. But I can walk you through part of it. What it'll look like is you'll click on Gradescope inside Canvas, or you can go to the actual Gradescope page, it doesn't matter. And you'll find our class, so it'll be something like 176B. It's all in one section, so you should be able to get in through the same one. Everybody's in the same roster. You'll click on that and you'll be presented with a screen like this, and you'll click on homework 1. It shows when it was released and when it's due, right? It's always due at 11 p.m. You'll click on this, and this is where the 2 get different, right? This is what faculty see, or instructors see, is the screen that I'm on right now. What you will see is the submission process. The submission process is the one that's shown in that video on the other page. So if you go into modules and look at the first homework assignment, I've posted a link here for the video. That's what that'll look like once you actually submit it. The key step that you'll have is a process called tagging the pages, which takes all of about 10 seconds or so, maybe 20 seconds. Gradescope's going to ask you, please click on the page that corresponds to problem 1. And then click on the page that corresponds to problem 2, right? That kind of stuff. It doesn't take very long, but that gives us the proper sorting when we go through to actually grade your assignments, that we know where to find them. So that's what I mean by tag the pages. It'll just ask you, click on the page with the first homework problem, click on the page with the second homework problem, and so forth. So it really doesn't take long. The whole walkthrough is like 2 minutes, something like that. Please let me know if any of the due dates are different. I have to enter these due dates like 3 or 4 different times, and I'm sure sooner or later I will make a mistake entering them. They should all be 11 p.m. on the date that they're listed on the daily schedule. If they're not, let me know, because I just made a mistake entering them. All of the other homework assignments, they'll just show up on this modules page, right? If it's occurring during the work on the packed bed, then they'll be in this one. Eventually, you'll see additional modules underneath here for the other experiment. And that's where you'll go for all of those resources. Any videos that we post, any links to stuff that we post, they'll be organized by which project we're talking about. Speaking of projects, if we skip back to the course syllabus and talk about, let's see, the grading. Oh yeah, grading for the course. It's going to be a mixture of your homeworks and reports. Dr. O and I are still working on what we're going to do for assigning portions of the grade, excuse me, to different assignments. But we will get that fixed up no later than tomorrow. So it's not like you're going to go through halfway through the course and you're not going to know that. We're going to figure it out by tomorrow. Everything's got to go through Gradescope. This is a link to the same submission procedure that I just showed you. And then the rubrics for the written reports, again, they're going to look a little bit different because you're doing those individually. However, it's almost the same rubric. And it's the same rubric we've used in previous courses because it's kind of become the norm to have at least one of the reports done individually. So again, this is not like a special modification for an online course. That's the way it was going to be anyway. Again, it's a little different because you're now doing 2 individual reports instead of 1, but the grading itself is not, it's not new. We're not flying by the seat of our pants here. This is the normal way that we would run an individual assignment. Course organization, as is sort of implied by the daily schedule, the first maybe third of the course, like weeks 1 through 3.5, 1 through 4, you're going to be doing a packed bed pressure drop experiment. That's the one that if you're looking to point your finger at something that's particularly different than what it normally would be or what I would like it to be, it's this. Those experiments have to be pre-recorded because the equipment for that is not something that I can mail to you. However, I did go in right before quarantine was assigned onto the campus or essential personnel, whatever they're calling it right now. And I walked out of there on like a Friday night at 9:30 p.m. while it was raining, and I loaded up about 30K worth of experimental equipment, threw it into the car. So that brought back my graduate school days. I haven't done that in a while. But now I have that experiment basically downstairs in my garage. So we'll still get to work through that one. But again, bear with us. Yes, that is not ideal that I'm doing it and you're watching it. But we have to make a few concessions for this somewhat unusual set of circumstances we're under. Then when you get to weeks 5 through 10, as I mentioned before, that one's really not that much different from the way that we were going to run the course, the way that experiment normally goes. That's the one where you're going to do an experiment with COMSOL. And that experiment is low pressure chemical vapor deposition reactor, or LPCVD. And the key point of this one is it's a simulation. Simulation tools are used by a number of our faculty in the department. They're used by any number of people that are in the STEM field, and I'm talking specifically about simulations done in COMSOL. COMSOL is a remarkably powerful piece of equipment. I think some of you have actually used it in 124. The learning curve on it is a little bit high, and so one of the things that we're going to do is sort of spread out that learning curve. So that will actually be to your advantage compared to the way that the LPCVD reactor normally works, is we have more time to get you up to speed on that reactor or on that software. And that should mean that you have a better grasp of it as you go. So we'll do some more worked examples and have you answer some questions before we actually get to the actual report. And this is just a summary of exactly what I just said. It's not that much different than what we would have done anyway. We do have some course resources that you will need. Since we're on the topic of COMSOL, we have been able to obtain individual licenses for you. And so that's a great advantage because it means that you don't need the virtual computing lab, which you can access COMSOL through that still. You're welcome to log in through there and get it if you want to. It's just a little bit slow in terms of interacting with it. The computer that sits behind it is probably a lot faster than whatever it is that you're using at home. So if you have, for example, a massive calculation, it may be easier to run that on the virtual computing lab than it would be on your personal machine. But we're not really going to do any experiments like that. And so the biggest slowdowns are usually just waiting for your clicks to be registered. And now we have licenses that you can use to install that software on your own machine. And so that workflow will be much more enjoyable than trying to use the virtual computing center. That said, you are still going to need the VPN. So your literature searches that you're going to do for various reports, as well as some of the searches that you're going to have to do on the homework, will require you to read, well, I should say, will require you to access and then read published journal articles. And in order to get access to those, you're going to need the VPN. You don't need anything special. Once you're logged into the VPN, you can usually just go to those, like the ISI Web of Knowledge that I had gone over in the winter quarter. You can just go on there and it knows according to your IP address that you've got access to that. And it's not like you have to enter any more passwords or anything like that. And then you'll need the same two that we've used in the winter, which is a copy of MATLAB and still Overleaf. So everything's still going to be done in LaTeX. Everybody should still have a copy of, or sorry, all of your licenses should still be active in Overleaf. So you can still use LaTeX to do everything. if we take a look at, so your lab reports aren't going to change. Those still use the same template, so you can just recycle that template. For the homeworks, I'll always have a little brief template provided to you on the homework. And I know that's not posted on Canvas, but I can share it on my screen right now just to give you a quick overview of what that would look like once you download it. This is what a homework would look like. If you've taken any of my classes where I've posted homeworks before, it probably looks pretty similar because I got a LaTeX template for it. I'll give you a brief little template up at the top. You just need the basics, right? Set the font with the sticks, make sure that you can import an image, make sure you can use math, make sure you can use SI units, make sure you can use chemistry, enter some basic information, and then provide your answers here, right, wherever the solution goes. I also gave you a little hint. You're going to have to write probably more math than you're used to. And there's a shortcut way that I think I may have alluded to in our LaTeX lecture last quarter, but you don't always have to write begin equation, end equation. If you don't want a numbered equation, I've shown you the shortcut way to enter an equation, and it kind of gets rid of a little bit of the tediousness of creating those equation environments. So you're welcome to do that as well. The homework assignments, the one that you're going to be doing here is related to a manometer. This homework and the next one are very similar to what the pre-lab questions would look like for the pressure drop experiment. We just sort of stretched them out a little bit into homework assignments. And so this is very similar to the system that you're going to see in the videos where you've got a tube of water and a manometer set to it or attached to it. And so the questions are things like, show that the pressure at point 2 is about the same as pressure at point 1. Calculate some stuff with the energy Bernoulli, calculate a Reynolds number, calculate a head loss coefficient, et cetera, et cetera. And then so you'll be completing all of this and adding your answers into your LaTeX document, and then you'll upload that completed LaTeX PDF into Gradescope, and that's how we'll grade everything. Which is pretty much the same as your reports would do as well. Obviously, you'll just use the full template for your reports. You won't have any shortened templates for something like this. So I already have a note from the earlier lecture to post this because I forgot to post this. It will get posted as soon as we're done here. Let me quick switch back to the syllabus, and then we're almost done, and I will do what I did earlier today, which is I'll just kind of hang out and answer questions if anybody has anything. Oh, shoot. Are we actually done? Did grading. Did everything individual. Oh, yeah. Office hours. We're still working out what that's going to look like because I still want you to be able to talk to me, right? I don't want to have to rely on emails going back and forth. And there's sort of two options for that. Most likely the way that I'm going to set that up is I will post a link on Canvas to my own Google Calendar, and I'll add time slots on there, and you can just sign up for a time slot. And then I'll just show up and send you a Zoom meeting around that time, and we can discuss things that way. And I think that's the other option is to have, there's two other options. The other option, one is have preset times for all the office hours. And I lean away from that one because I have to make sure that the class can be completed asynchronously. So people in other time zones have to be able to access me. And having those at preset times could be kind of inconvenient if you're on a different time zone. And so having, 15 times during the week that somebody can talk to me separately is easier and more flexible for you when it comes to picking those times, because you can pick them how they fit best for your schedule. The other version is email, which is terrible. I am sure at this point you have just been flooded with emails the same way that I have. Setting up meetings through email is a nightmare because it's back and forth, and then things come up where, I offered a time and then something came up and that time doesn't work anymore, et cetera. So I don't want to do emails. And then Dr. Opakowitz will have something similar, so you'll be able to talk to him as well. So office hours were the other thing that I wanted to get to. So I think I've covered everything that I want to cover in terms of the way that the course is going to operate. Again, the daily schedule is going to show you roughly what pace you can expect. And then all of those due dates that are on here just keep in mind they're 11 p.m. on the date that they're due, and all of that stuff is going to get posted on Canvas. And again, all of these lectures, whether they're live or not, they're all going to be recorded and posted on Canvas, so you can always catch them afterwards. Become essential MATLAB. Yep, I've got all of those done. So I've hit all the major elements that I want. So I'm just going to hang out for a little while. You are more than welcome to take off if you've got other things to do. If you have any questions, I'm going to change the way that the chat works so that you can message anyone. So you can either post a message, everyone publicly will see it, or you can select my name on the to field there and just send it directly to me. But I'll just hang out a little while until sort of the questions peter off, and then that'll be that. So if you're taking off, thank you very much. If you're going to hang out, I'll wait for your questions over in the chat window. Can put on a little bit of background music too. Bonus points if you can identify the background music. Also, tell me if the background music is too loud and I can turn it down, if it's swamping my voice. So there's a question in chat, what if VPN doesn't work? Short answer, try it on your phone. Surprisingly enough, the app on the phone for me works a lot better than the desktop one. But that said, the desktop one for me has always been pretty functional. In a worst case scenario, send me the paper that you want. So you should still be able to use like the ISI Web of Knowledge or Google Scholar or something like that to at least read an abstract. And then if you think that that's something that you want and VPN won't work, send me an email or a message or something like that, and I can get them for you. But do that as a last resort, because it could take me 2 or 3 days to get around to doing something like that. I will try to do it as absolutely fast as I can, hopefully within, like 4 or 5 hours, something like that. But if something's gone funky with the VPN and there's a paper you want, send me a message and I can try and get it for you. You'll only need it for getting papers. You won't need it for using any of the software. So you don't have to worry about that part. But it is way more convenient to get your papers when you want them. So I have in the past used my phone with the VPN and just downloaded them to my phone and then emailed them to myself. do you connect to the VPN? Do you want to connect on your phone? Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. I will UCSD VPN. I'll show you the steps that I usually use. So those are the general directions that I use to get to the VPN. Obviously, if you look at that page, there's different instructions for different operating systems. And so I use the one for Windows 10 and another one for iOS. iOS for my phone and Windows 10 for my desktop. It basically consists of downloading Cisco's VPN network, or sorry, Cisco's VPN client, which is called Cisco AnyConnect. And you enter a little bit of information about which network you're trying to connect to, all of which is given on those instructions over there. And then while the VPN is active, all of your traffic is being routed through the campus servers. And so when you're checking for things like journal articles or something, they're checking your IP to make sure it's one that's assigned to UCSD, and that's how it gets you access. Usually I recommend that you turn it off if you're doing things for yourself. I usually only turn it on when I need it. I haven't noticed a slowdown or anything. Maybe I'm just paranoid about not sending all of my web traffic through campus servers when I don't have to. Oh, fair warning too. If you start the VPN while you're like streaming something, or you're like in this meeting right now, or you're actively downloading something, it will usually cancel whatever's running. Anything that requires a constant communication back and forth. So like if you're playing a video game or something like that online, and you suddenly sign into the VPN, it will usually kick you off because you're changing your IP address. I see your message here. I will go dig into my emails afterwards. It probably got, lost. I apologize for that in the horde of emails that we've got. That is definitely an accurate description of what it's looked like in email. I will dig back through there this afternoon and find it. You're welcome. Okay, I think, well, it's down to just the three of us now. So unless there's any further questions, I think I'm going to wrap this one up. You're welcome. Okay, for everybody watching the recording, thanks all for watching, and I will see you in class whenever we see you.